with Burritos, the podcast that feeds you a weekly dish of movie reviews, media, entertainment news, and other content you can like, share, or use to start a conversation. On this episode, we soar with the Guardians of the Galaxy and visit the Western film genre as it relates to the modern-day comic book movie. Also, how Netflix isn't stealing butts from movie theater seats. Studios just aren't providing the right cushion to sit on. Not only did Guardians of the Galaxy 2 provide us with the same dysfunctional characters from its predecessor, the movie improved upon itself by focusing a lot on the environment in which the Guardians exist. A space adventure is just another space adventure with the same characters from the last iteration. You just insert a villain here or a problematic situation there, and you have your movie. However, if you read comics, then you know that sometimes the storylines are not as important as the art behind the new villain or the new world your characters enter into or encounter that issue. That's what creates excitement and, that page turning delight. And with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, each scene was like a visual swipe of a large page to that next great big screen image. I loved it. For example, we have a scene, it's a transition scene. It opens up tight on Quill's Walkman and his fingers just jumping up against it as the soundtrack plays. And then you pan out and he's in the lower left-hand corner. But the background is just this scene of white and yellow geometric shapes. I was floored by a lot of these actual pictures in this movie. My friend, he texted me, he's like, oh, there was some serious directing going on in this thing. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I watched it and I'm like, wow. And he was right. It was freaking beautiful. He uses the close-up, like tight close-ups on people's faces. And by using that, you're able to really expose the character for who they are and force the actor to express themselves with nothing but their eyes or twitch of the lip or just a blank stare forward. And as we talk about the craft and the art of the film, I want to talk about the use of the celestial lights. And, when you talk about celestial, you're talking about the stars. And that's one tiny thing, not even tiny. It's not a tiny thing. It's a big thing because it's a universe thing. They got right these colors, these images of space that you very rarely see in a movie. We didn't see much of that in Interstellar. You don't see a lot of that in space movies or in movies where the location is space. Not even in Life, the recent movie I just saw, they didn't even showcase that. So a lot of times space is just presented as this dark and dreary place, but it's actually colorful and bright, filled with many different light reflections and gases that create color when they react with something else within the atmosphere. And so these colors were beautifully represented in this movie. And I don't recall ever seeing that before, because if I did, or maybe it's just the way they presented it that made it that much more beautiful. They were just as beautiful as a sight to see in this movie as they are from the many images NASA provides you on a daily basis. If you just click on NASA pictures, they get pictures from the Hubble telescope and all these other different cameras they have out there, and they present them to you on a daily basis. All you have to do is just type it in and you'll see. And if I would recommend you do that now if you haven't seen the movie, or if you've seen the movie, go ahead and do it now and then watch the movie again, because they are totally right, spot on with the representation of colors within these galaxies of stars, or these clusters of stars. Just take a look at the image recently taken in Guatemala of a volcano erupting into the stars. I'll supply a link for that in this episode. But if you actually just want to, you can just type it in right now. Just type it in on your phone while you're listening to this and look up that picture. And you'll see this volcano is erupting and the smoke is actually bleeding into the Milky Way. The sky was so clear that you could see the Milky Way, and so it looks like it's erupting stars. This is just a great example of how much pride Disney and their creators take in making a film look right. that little tiny intricacies, like even if it's from Moana's hair, if she pulls it back. I'm like, no one has ever done that in a movie. I've never seen anyone just take their hair back and tie it up in a movie. They take pride in the small things. And those small things matter to the overall experience. You got to look at the movie as an image. You can have all of the Guardians, all of the Iron Mans, all of the whatevers, comic book movies you have, and it could be trite as hell. You might think that, oh, too many here. But if they can paint a beautiful picture, then it makes it all that much worthwhile. Even for the story. Because a lot of the storylines are typical. They're the same. Actually, you can probably take a Guardians of the Galaxy comic books and just read through them all and get the story of the Guardians of the Galaxy. You go to the movie theater and you think, oh, I'm going to get Guardians of the Galaxy. But boom, they make it look so much different to set apart the movie from the actual comic book. So you just have to really open your mind up. And with this one, this is just pow, smack you in the face. Look how beautiful this is. And if you don't awe at that, then maybe you just don't have an eye for it, or you just like to be entertained. You don't want to have to look at things and like, come on, just make me laugh. You know, some people are like that, and that's cool. But for me, it was the art behind Guardians of the Galaxy that really intrigued me, that really excited me. I liked the story. The story was cool, but come on. The story was good. The story was enough to tell a story. You know, the story was enough to tell a story. I repeat that. And we knew what was going to happen. In the first movie, he says he's going to go look for his father. And they introduce that Quill's father. They say something about his father. So you know he's going to find out who his father is. And if you follow any of the news, then you know, oh, Kurt Russell is casted as his father. You don't know anything about the father, and I'm not going to tell you that. But you know that he has a father and that this storyline is going to be centered around his father. But that also presents a different narrative as well within this story. You have to look for that for yourself. But there are different narratives. It's the same narrative, the same plot device, but they explore it a little differently. You know, it's very versatile, and they were able to really take that and then elaborate more upon it, make it so that it's relevant to Quill's existence within this universe. The attention to the wonderment of the galaxies and their thousands of stars weren't evident in Volume 1, and it's what seems to be the point of focus for Marvel movies or space movies here on out. Why don't you just watch the Thor trailer? If you see the Thor trailer or just the poster, you can look at the poster and you'll see that they're inviting a lot more color into the Thor universe. This one's going to be, I think, primarily in space, so it's not going to have to go to Earth anytime soon, so that's good. You have him in space and dealing with other space colonies or space people. This gives them the chance to actually introduce a different stage, a different look to the film, which is pretty cool. Always keep innovating. That'll keep people interested, because if you have everything look the same, all the sequels look the same, people get bored. But if you do what they're doing, because that Ragnarok trailer looks pretty freaking good. And yes, I've watched the trailer. I watched the trailer because my friend told me to watch the trailer. And I asked him, is it worth it? Is it worth me breaking the code? He said, yes. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. I'm like, damn, you're right. This is pretty good. But if you look at that and look at those colors, I hope that that's where Marvel is going now, where they start innovating the look of the comic book image, actually painting the screen with colors and different images to really excite viewers, audiences, instead of just relying on, look, this is Iron Man. See, you remember him from the first one? He looks good. He's the same person. And please, he's still the same person, so you love him. This movie should be good. Hopefully they don't do that, but I'm hoping that's what they do. I hope they take that advantage, especially take that artistic licensing going forward with Infinity War, which should be good. If you look at the colors of the Infinity Stones, they are different colors, and if you start inviting those colors into the next films, pretty sure they're gonna look dang good. Okay, I'm gonna say it, damn good. The appearance of space isn't as bland as darkness sprinkled with a few million stars. Galaxies collide and stars erupt, painting a very different picture of space beyond our atmosphere. Star Wars did it mostly, but with creating the worlds themselves, and Star Trek just the same. I beam out to a world and it looks totally different, but space is just the same. You see the ship just going through space, it's just the same. You just got this darkness and then some bright stars. Once you get to the world, that's when the creativity, and that's when everything becomes vibrant, because you can like either be dreary, and it's all about the look of it and the character of the people. So if they're angry people, then maybe you have nothing but red rocks or blue rocks. But if there are vibrant people, then you have pinks and yellows and blues. Or maybe the people are blue or pink. You never know. But a lot of people, they don't really think of, I haven't seen, let me just say that, I haven't seen, or I don't remember actually seeing that type of color introduced to the universe. It was always, once they stepped on the world, that things looked different. So aside from some anime I've watched, we have yet to have anyone look at the universe and produce a semblance of its majesty to this degree of creativity. Actually, watch Your Name, and I suggest you do. If you live in the greater Tucson area, they still have that film playing at the law. There's a scene of a meteor entering the Earth's atmosphere that will really just drop your jaw. It is beautiful. Well, it's that scene, and then there was this dream sequence with the meteor as well, but it's just that they presented it in a different way. It wasn't just this thing coming out of the sky, fiery red object coming out of the sky. No, once you enter the Earth's atmosphere, you have this trail dust, this celestial dust trail of many different colors coming off of this thing as it's barreling towards Earth. And it was just so beautiful to look at. I don't know what my thing is about colors nowadays, but I just thought that was so beautiful to look at. And so when I saw this movie, I was like, wow, that is great. I've never seen that before, but maybe I have. I'm not sure. But it was beautiful to look at. But I do suggest you watch that movie. So proof is in the pictures. The universe is brilliant in its wonder, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 captures the essence of 1,000 stars and blends them in to the art of a story filled with characters who shine brightly as individuals within a whole galaxy. Now, let's go to the story. I know I kind of poo-pooed the story before, but sorry. I give credit to Gunn and Dan Abnett for bringing back these characters we fell in love with in Volume 1. They were just as funny and just as ridiculous as we remember them, with a few new members to chop it up with. I didn't watch the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer, but when I heard Drax in full guffaw over Quill embarrassing himself in front of Gamora, I thought, ugh, here we go again. They're just going to keep making him laugh boisterously at ridiculous things. And they did just that. Volume 2 was the same movie replicated with the same jokes that made us laugh in Volume 1. And I wasn't wrong. However, they did something with this sequel that many other sequels with comedic value failed to do. They made the same jokes funnier. I don't know how, but they did. And I laughed out loud many times, way out loud like a crazy person. At some point I thought, wow, I like this movie better than Volume 1. But then I saw parts of Volume 1. I started watching Volume 1 again. I thought, damn, I like this movie too. So that's the brilliance of these two movies, is that they coincide together. They are equally as entertaining and enjoyable. I've seen it twice already and ready to go a third time with the entire family. But let's not get it wrong. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was Quill's story. But the main character is never as good as his or hers supporting cast. Drax was a hoot. I thought I would be annoyed by him, but he was awesome. He was freaking hilarious, especially when he was teamed up against Mantis, the gullible empath. Not a telepath, she's an empath. She feels things. She can sense what people feel. And Rocket pulled no punches with his crass language and bad attitude. Kurt Russell was just Kurt Russell. He does what Kurt Russell do. He's a great actor, and he was a cool casting for the father of Star-Lord. And Baby Groot, I tried not to like him because anyone can do that part. And they are paying freaking Vin Diesel a grip for what? And don't get me started. Because somebody tell me why they have him listed in this movie as playing Baby Groot. You don't need Vin Diesel to do that part. Maybe they just put him as Vin Diesel because he was in the first movie and they just put his name on the second movie. But you better not tell me that they paid this fool millions of dollars to play Baby Groot, where he just says, I am Groot, and they alter the voice of it to make him sound younger. Please don't tell me that they spent millions of dollars for this fool to be in this movie. They didn't even do anything unless he was dancing around and actually doing the movements. They put him in a green suit and they put the little spots on him and they were motion tracking suit on him and they had him just running around as Baby Groot. But even that's stupid, because wouldn't you want that to be a kid or something in a suit running around to actually get those movements correct as to how a child might move? Why do we need adult Vin Diesel in this movie if he's a child? That's just stupid. It makes no damn sense, and I don't understand it. Why do we always cast people if he can play chipmunks and to play other people, to play these different characters who don't need to be in the movies? You can save a hell of a lot of budget if you just don't put them fools in there, because there are hundreds of, maybe thousands voice actors out there who can do a better job, who when you listen to them, they actually sound like somebody different. They can sound like somebody different. Tara Strong, she can sound like someone different. And when you recast the freaking Powerpuff Girls and you don't put Tara Strong in it, I'm not going to watch the Powerpuff Girls because they're just not the same. Why don't you get voice actors to do the voice work and then let the actors do the acting work? Now, in some instances, that's fine. Some people, let's say Justin Timberlake in Shrek 2, I think, when he plays the prince. That was cool. It was a good casting. But some of these characters, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, like some of your extra characters on the side, they don't really need. You can actually just cast someone who actually does that for a living, who does voice work for a living. Am I necessarily going to go watch Beauty and the Beast because Ewan McGregor is playing the Candlebra? No, I'm not. I don't give a damn. I'm coming there for the Beast and Emma Watson. So just leave the voice acting to the voice acting. I know I can, this is just how Hollywood is. They're just going to cast people to play certain parts, and that's just how it is to play. But, Lion King, Donald Glover, I can see that. But I'm just not all of them. I'm just saying some of them where it just seems more practical to use a voice actor instead of having someone who is like, okay, well, Vin Diesel, that's just Vin Diesel's voice, so we hear him. But then let's say you have Vin Diesel do a voice and then you change it up. That's not Vin Diesel. So why do we need Vin Diesel in this role if you're not using his voice for what it's intended? He has a deep voice, so you would cast him for a character with a deep voice. But this is Baby Groot, so why would you put Vin Diesel in this role for Baby Groot? Is it because you paid him already? I hope you did. Hopefully you paid him a lump sum and just said, hey, if you just want to be in these movies, that's cool. We'll cast you. But maybe they'll use him later on. We've got a stipulation in your contract that, when we can use you, when we need you, then we'll pay you more. Put you on a mocap suit and have you go out there and run around like a tree. I don't know. That's my saying. So don't get me started on that ever again, because I freaking hate it. But I'll probably get started on it a lot because I don't like it. There are voice actors out there. Actors and voice actors. Come on. Use the voice actors. There's great voice actors out there. But Mark Hamill as Batman, keep him. As Joker, you can keep him. But I know he retired the role, but, he's just good like that. And some people just, they actually can transcend. They can transition into voice acting. Some people do that because they're actors and they can do that. But when you just, I don't know if you're just casting the person because they have a name, because that name attracts someone. But, oh man, it just really hurts me when I know people are starving. You paying Vin Diesel $10 million something just to pay a freaking tree. I don't know. But because no, I did not enjoy him as Baby Groot. I enjoyed Baby Groot. Okay. And I tried not to like Baby Groot, but damn it, he was adorable. He was adorable, and not the patronizing stem of a root that I thought it would be. I really just thought he was just going to be there to patronize us, to go to really see this movie because, hey, it's look Baby Groot, look how cute and adorable he is. I really thought they were just going to beat us over the head with that, but they didn't. And they used him in a way, used him in a way where he was still susceptible to dangers, to the same dangers the crew was. And there were scenes in this movie where it's like, oh, I felt freaking sorry for Groot. I felt sad for Groot. Because they got the expressions and everything so right on his face. And they really make you feel for him. Like, oh, baby Groot. I'm so sad now. But, I like Baby Groot. I didn't want to like him, but I did. So, the characters, they were great. But, the story. If you strip away the cosmic battles, the celestial beings, and the talking trash panda, you have a Western. And the Guardians of the Galaxy are just cowboys. So for my main dish, I want to dish about how space is a great setting for a Western. I read this quote by Peter Cow. I think it's just, Peter Cow with the E. It's from the book of John. It's from the book of John. It's the book of John Ford and the American West. In reference to the Western, he states, it's a mythic vision of plains and deserts. Now think about that. I envision a desert plain, flat and stretches on forever. Now consider space in all this glory, inhabited by planets, galaxies, and billions of stars. Each one of these planets and their moons represents towns and saloons of an old Western pit stop. Space cowboys soar from planet to planet, wielding curiosity as to what is to come. Some search for bounty and others for a new home. Space is open for interpretation and a great stage for an action adventure. There's this article on how Akira Kurosawa's Samurai 7 continues to influence filmmakers today. And in considering this article, I thought about how much Guardians of the Galaxy is just another interpretation of a classic film about 7 Ronin, masterless samurai, who help save villagers from thieves who steal their crops. Sounds familiar, right? Think A Bug's Life. There you go, fill in the blanks. It may not be purposely the intention of the writer or the creators of the comic book who structured that story around this premise. However, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 doesn't exactly avoid the pigeonhole of this plot device. The opening scene sets up the narrative for a tale to unfold. The Guardians are on a planet performing their duties as they are entitled. Insert villain here and some other subplot and some other further subplot involving Quill's dad to distract them from their mission. And, we basically have our script. We have our storyline. We have our plot. And I'm not saying this is in a simplistic way. These people make a lot of money doing this, and I don't. The Western gives writers a better opportunity to showcase the various attributes of characters within an ensemble cast. Each film or issue could expose a very humanistic side to the superhuman, alien, or humanoid itself, as seen in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, without losing the excitement of fantasy. I was watching the animated show of Guardians of the Galaxy on Disney XD, and they were gearing up for this 90-minute special on how symbiotes were attempting to jump to Groot's home planet using Thor's Bifrost. That's the story within the story. But yet, if you think about them going to Groot's planet, that's going to expose you more to Groot's background. So space cowboys, space jumping, space travelers, they explore in their quest for whatever they're doing, whether it's a bounty or maybe whether it's just trying to help out a planet. These stories are within the characters, and with the Guardians, they have plenty of storylines and crossovers to keep audiences entertained, just as long as they continue to innovate within the realm of the MCU. And you seeing with this movie that they're starting to do that. They're starting to innovate a little bit more to continue the storylines, to introduce more characters, to actually open up this universe to where it's expansive enough for everyone or different entities to come in, affect one another. Fantasy makes a great comic book movie. However, when things get real, moviegoers are likely not to enjoy the movie as much. Hence all the backlash Warner Brothers gets for its Batman and Superman adaptations, or Marvel's Ant-Man and Iron Man 3. Even the Avengers 2 suffered from the spells of boredom and contrived drama by being too serious. Logan successfully pulled this off earlier this year, but That was a movie long overdue. Guardians Volume 2 continued its rite of passage by keeping it real. They gave us fun with the first movie and made the second movie even more exciting and hilarious. And in doing so, achieved something other films in the MCU failed. They made a successful sequel. Spielberg said a few years ago that the comic book movie will go the way of the Western. And many believe that to be true at the time because they were just getting bored. Some of these movies like Ant-Man and Thor, they weren't doing as well in the box office. And, and then you have Fantastic Four and a few of these other movies. I think some of the last X-Men movie or something before this one just didn't do well. And so that led people to start believe that there's this decline in interest for comic book movies. Well, don't tell that to Disney. But Disney has the next 5 or 10 years locked down with movies as Warner Brothers trudges behind. People are still jumping on board this. You have The Defenders going on Netflix. You have spin-off shows of CW on the CW with The Flash, Supergirl, and the Legends of Tomorrow. You have also Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC, and then you'll have something else too that they just entered, Cloak and Dagger. If you haven't seen that trailer, go watch the Cloak and Dagger trailer. Now, I don't like getting excited about these things because they usually disappoint me, but damn, that's a damn good trailer. I'm telling you, that's a good trailer. So I would say watch that one. Go watch that trailer. Check it out. So yeah, and that's not going to debut till later next year. And also, they just announced that they want to do a new Hellboy. They're going to do Hellboy without Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro. What? There's no such thing as no Guillermo del Toro and Hellboy. I read some article. I read some title. I didn't even want to read the article because he said how the new Hellboy is the next best thing. You. Seriously. Come on. Hellboy and Hellboy 2. I think it was Hellboy 2. Did they have Hellboy? I think they were fantastic. Perfect casting. They had perfect monsters. They had everything. Everything was right about that series. Comic book movie adaptation. And that was a good movie before comic book movies were even a thing, were even important. We didn't even blink at that one. That movie, Hellboy and Blade, were great comic book movies before anyone even considered comic book movies to be a viable asset in Hollywood, in the industry. So don't tell me that this is going to be a good thing, because it's not a good thing. Because you're just adding more. You're just piling on more comic book stuff. You're just basically saying, I'm going to reintroduce this title because it was good before. And now that comic book movies are popular, you want, let's do this one now. We're just going to put this out there. No, bullshit. That's why you keep trying to do Spider-Man like 100 damn times. Hopefully they get it right this time. And I don't even know what else they're going to try to I don't know. Ghost Rider, might as well try to bring that back. And I'm pretty sure Fantastic Four is just dead in the water. You just have to reinvent that one again. It's like, come on. Either get it right the first time or don't get it right at all. Or just leave it alone. And how about you just reintroduce, like, UB40. I think UB40, they sang Red, Red Wine and all them stuff back in the day, where they became very popular. Or Red Wine, that album, when it actually debuted, it was good. It came out top 100, and then it fell off. But then later on, a radio DJ in the States thought, whoa, this is a hit. They already had another song playing, that the studio AM record company. They were actually trying to solicit to radio stations that they were playing, but it wasn't really it wasn't really taking much traction. But this radio studio, they took they started listening to all the collection, all the songs and stuff, and they just started picking out ones. And Red Wine was one that they picked out. And so what he did is re-release that. He released that track, and what did it do? It skyrocketed to number 1 8 years after it actually debuted. So that's pretty much what they're trying to do. They're trying to pull a UB40 here, where they think that since Hellboy was so awesome then, it's going to be awesome now because we're just going to bring it back. No, because you don't have Guillermo del Toro and you don't have Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman is Hellboy. Come on. Okay, let's go back to Spielberg. He talked about how the comic book movie was going to go the way of the Western. I don't know how he feels about that now, but he probably still feels the same way. Not too good about it because it's just saturating the market. And that's what I want to say. The thing is with the Western is that over time, moviegoers started deviating away from the Western and started paying more attention to movies and films geared more towards the culture, towards pop culture, to the culture now than reflected on the past. And the thing is, that's what happened with the Western. They had something to replace it. With that said, I challenge, what do we have to replace the comic book movie right now? Nothing. There's nothing out there really competing. If we had a surge of maybe horror movies coming out, will they be able to amass that much amount of revenue for studios to consider, shelving their comic book entities? Not really. So currently, that's why people are gearing to make these things, because they're not really going away. Yeah, it's not really going away because people still want the comic book movie. They're still enjoying them. They're still going out to pay the big dollars. So therefore, they're not going to just stop making them unless some of your new blockbusters, let's say Infinity War comes out and bombs. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp bombs. Thor bombs. The romantic comedy makes a comeback somehow. Then next thing you know, we want this new best thing. We want the new romantic comedy. So studios start focusing their times on that. Or the new action movie. Let's say action thriller. And so they start making movies pertaining to that. But with actual comic book movies, you have years and years of content, storylines, characters that you can draw from. And right now, it's a treasure trove of material. Until we actually get something original coming through here. Get Out was a good start, but you're not going to see many come through for that. So if you start trying to make anti-political thrillers now, or just political thrillers, horror movies, people are going to be like, oh, well, no, you just try to copy off of Get Out. So it's not really going to work. You have to do it. You have to know what you have and then produce that within the space. But nothing's going to replace the Western right now because we have nothing to replace. The comic book movie, because we have nothing to replace it right now. Maybe if a Lord of the Rings or something like that of sorts comes through. Maybe if they start making Game of Thrones a movie saga, instead of, after the story, the HBO show ends, they can make it into movies now. But until then, until we have something to replace it, I'm pretty sure these movies are here to stay. And that's why Fox still keeps making X-Men movies. That's why they keep making Spider-Man movies. Unfortunately, they can't get past 3. Hopefully, you can continue a saga because there are many different storylines that you can explore with Spider-Man. And they've only just touched the tip of the Spider-Man saga. And now you got cool characters coming in. You're going to see Cable in the next Deadpool. And that introduces X-Force. And so you have all these different things you can do with comic book movies because the material's there. Before the rise of the comic book, we had book adaptations. You're going to need maybe another one of those, because that usually comes into fashion very easily. You get one good Hunger Games book, saga, trilogy, boom. Next thing you know, you got 3 movies for at least 3 years. Death Cure, that's coming back. The Maze Runner, finally, because, what's that guy? I forgot his name. Whatever, almost died making that movie on the front last year. Yeah, and so now he's back for it, so which is awesome. I need to get that kid's name because I'll tell you this, I see a Tom Cruise in that kid. He has a good acting range. And so one would conclude that Spielberg should eat his words, but that guy's royalty, so no one's going to do that. I dare you, Shia LaBeouf. Let's go into this story that about J.J. Abrams and the movie theaters. The only reason why the Western went away is because there was something else to replace it. With studios concentrating so much of their yearly budgets on blockbuster films, they release fewer movies each year, which hurts movie theater chains and invites the question, are online services like Netflix killing movies? It's such a saucy debate, but that's easy to quell with just a little bit of thought. I don't think Netflix is killing movies, but I do believe it's making the market very competitive. In a recent speech, J.J. Abrams spoke about how the window to theatrical releases will soon shorten and open up VOD for people who want the luxury to stay at home and watch new releases. And he based this opinion on an experience he had during a night out at the movies with his wife. He stated, "You go there, they're angry with you. It's cold, there's no music, the lights go down when the movie starts, there's no ceremony, it's the most uncomfortable seats. You're convinced there's something in front of the projector. Meanwhile, most people in that audience have better TVs at home than the image you are seeing." Now, that might be a slight exaggeration on his part, unless, that is, the presentation was indeed that bad in that particular auditorium where he and his wife watched whatever movie. Can you imagine if he name dropped the theater? J.J. Abrams, his frustration stems from the fact that he had a bad experience. And isn't that the main factor in attending any movie at any theater? The experience. So how do you sell the experience with a premium cost for the VOD luxury, video on demand? Sure, you can stay at home and watch the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie on your 72-inch television, but where's the spectacle in that? You're at home, familiar territory with far too many distractions. Cell phone, kids playing on cell phones. Hun, hey, did you pay that car bill? If you're like me, home is a huge distraction. When my family and I go to the movies, my kids have to stay seated and attentive, and my wife has to put her phone away. No excuses, right? I can hear it. The movie, she says. Yes, but you're not watching the movie, but I can hear it. That's usually what my wife says. I don't have to watch the movie to understand what they're saying. That's not the point. It's actually watching the action on the screen. Or, you know what? You're so comfortable at your own home that you just fall asleep. You've been working all week and you're dog tired. Once you've had dinner, settled down to watch that $50 one-time viewing of a film, you fall asleep. Money wasted. There's no DVRing that flick. Play it once and it's done. Well, this might be a benefit our families with small children or large households. This would allow many of them to view new releases once they debut without having to, break the bank for, let's say, an 8-member family. My family wasn't one to frequent movies much, hardly ever. I remember watching my first movie in a theater at the age of 9, on base, because we lived, my dad was in the military. About 6 weeks after its release, it was The Land Before Time. I cried like a baby. I don't remember much about the experience as I did the movie, but all this changed when I saw Terminator 2, when it was still in its first run. It was when I really gained an adoration for action movies and special effects, or visual effects. But it was attending the movie with my pops, dad, that I really enjoyed the most. These movies were always on in our home. We played them off of VHS, cassette player. So this experience of buying a ticket at the box office, getting popcorn, and watching the movies with other folks was indeed priceless. I enjoyed every moment of it. So I understand where Abrams is coming from, though. Theater chains have to step it up, but not due to the lack of interest in going to the movies. It's a lack of variety once they get there. Again, with many studios releasing fewer titles every year, more people are choosing to stay at home because they have options. Netflix is producing and acquiring content at an alarming rate. Slated to spend $6 billion on content for the year of 2017. For major studios with a fickle budget, they just can't take a chance on too many smaller films. So where do those films go if not to the theater? They're going to go to Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. Hastings, that's his last name, Netflix CEO, says movie theaters haven't innovated since popcorn, and yet studios continue to rake in millions at the box office. Netflix isn't going to kill movies. It's just challenging the business of an industry model that's attempting not to die. Large budget movies, even the least accepted, will make their movie back at the box office, but it's smaller films, smaller releases by major studios that are losing money. If that trend continues, there will be less to choose from at the box office, allowing Netflix to swoop in and commandeer the space and possibly release its own movies to theaters and online streaming, given that option of better content with a better experience. Movie theaters will continue to thrive as Netflix continues to usher the film industry into a new shared interest in the entertainment space. You really shouldn't panic about Netflix taking over movie theaters or shutting down new movie theaters. The fear comes in at the prospect of not having much else offered to us at the movie theater when we get there, because the smaller titles and even big name directors are going to go to Netflix and online streaming to find an audience. I don't know if it's more valuable to them or just because, hey, these people are shelling out the money, where studios are tentative to tell different stories or stories that don't involve huge productions, crazy action scenes. Directors will go to Netflix to tell better stories instead of more so trying to entertain with the idea or the intent on making more money for the studio. Netflix is its own audience. It has its own audience. So when you release a movie there, people are going to will find it easier. Click on Netflix originals, boom, that's all their new releases right there. So it's very difficult to really gauge where Netflix is going to factor in with movie theaters. Yes, it's going to take some business away from the movie theaters, but I think the business that they're taking away is actually the business of the filmmaker. Netflix hits up these film festivals and they with a budget, they say, okay, we're going to acquire 10 movies at a price of $33 million each. So they go in with the price. Most people are lowballing it. Most studios are. But Netflix is like, look here, we have 3 million and we have an audience. Here you go. So, hey, the model is changing. So studios, movie theaters, everything within that industry has to adapt to it and find a way where they make themselves more valuable to the consumer, the audience. It's very tricky, but I think they'll get there eventually. A lot of theater chains now, they are changing. They are changing the way they present themselves to the audience. You change your business model. And so that's what they're doing. And it's not, it could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing just because the industry is changing and you'll know which titles you need to release, where you need to release them. And once people come used to that and they know exactly in this business, this new industry model has been in place, then I think you'll hear less panic coming from a lot of people. But yes, I really do think movie theater chains should, if they do not like the idea of a studio or a movie theater or a studio attempting to present a movie on, via VOD and at the same time while it's in movie theaters, I applaud them for still standing up for the status quo, because they know their business model and this is how it is. It's, okay, I don't want your movie now showing and also showing on VOD, because that takes money out of their pockets. So yeah, this is all like just business wise. And a lot of us, we just have to sit back and enjoy the media where we find it. If you like Netflix, go to Netflix, but it's a totally different experience when you go to the movie theaters. You can't just say, you can't really compare going to the movie theaters to staying at home. You really can't. It's a totally different experience, but it's all on your preference. A lot of people just aren't movie goers. And nowadays with certain things in play, you got cell phones, you got all these other things. Sometimes, you just don't want to be bothered by that. So you just won't go. It's all about the preference of the audience. And once the audience know where to find the content that they want to view, then they'll go there. Well, this has been Talking with Burritos. I am Jerry JJ Wayne Graham. That's a wrap, but not a burrito.